This is the third video about Django real-time apps, and this time it's a bit complicated project that uses Django Channels, Redis and Celery to perform periodic tasks. Every 3 seconds, the Django app performs a GET request to the API to get a random joke about Chuck Norris, and then sends a message via WebSocket protocol to the front end. This is an asynchronous application that can handle requests from several clients. I have here 2 instances of Chrome browser, and the second instance, the bottom one, gets the same jokes because it's connected to the group that gets messages from the Django app. And these messages, these jokes, are broadcasted over all clients connected to the same group. And I assume that you have watched my previous videos about Django Channels. So let's do it. First of all, I am going to create a very basic Django project with one app and one template. Let's install Django. Now I want to create a Django project. Let's say it will be the jokes project. Then I want to create an app. Let's say it will be the jokes app. Python manage.py start app jokes. And let's apply migrations. Migrate command. And let's start development server. Okay, it's working. Now, on the level of the manage.py file, I want to create the templates directory. And create inside it an index.html file. Index.html. The content, I want to use bootstrap styles, so the getbootstrap.com, and I'm copying this CSS link. Django doesn't know about the templates folder yet, so in the jokes project I'm opening the settings.py file and I am appending the installed apps list with my jokes app, and the templates list, it's there's list. I want to add a new path, join path, and the templates name, the name of this folder is an argument. Then I am going to create a new route, a new URL pattern and a view to render the index.html file. So I want to change the root urls.py file, and here I'm creating a new URL pattern. And this pattern will use the urls.py file of the jokes app. I have to use the include function, jokes urls. And I have to import the include function. Then I'm creating the urls.py file in the jokes directory. And I'm creating a new URL pattern. The handler of all requests to this URL address, its root URL, will be an index function, for example. Let's import it. From .views import index. Dot here means the current folder and this views.py file. Let's define the index function that gets the request object as an argument, and it will render index.html file. Request object as the first argument and index.html file, this one, as the second. The context dictionary will have the text key, and the text will be, let's say, hello world. In the index function, I want to use the text variable. Bootstrap blocks with bootstrap classes. I want to have it centered. I want to have margin from top 5, and I want to use h3 header with jokes ID. Text. Let's test it. F5. I have to restart my development server. Okay. We have done it many times. Now I'm going to change my index view function to perform a GET request to an API that will return a random joke about Chuck Norris. To perform requests to the API, I want to use the requests library. So let's install it. Pip install requests. Okay, let's import it. I'm defining the URL variable http api I chucknorrisdb.com jokes random. After that, I want to perform a GET request to this URL. Response variable will be requests get URL. Let's copy it and paste it here. The response of the API is a JSON object with this structure. It has the value dictionary, and the value dictionary has the joke key, and the value of the joke key will be the joke I need. So, to serialize this JSON object, I have to use the JSON function, JSON method. And this expression will return a Python dictionary. So the joke will be the response. I am getting the value of the value key, this one, and then I need the joke. Let's use it. Instead of the hello world, I want to use the joke variable. Let's test it again. And we can see this joke. It's working. And to get the next joke, I have to call the index function again by performing a request to the URL. But I wanted to get a new joke every 3 or maybe 5 seconds automatically without performing any actions. And to achieve this result, I have to use the Celery library. Let's install it with all its Redis dependencies. Pip install, and inside single quotes Celery, and inside square brackets Redis. Celery is a tasks queues management tool. The task can be any function you want, a function that performs a request to an API, for example, or performs a web scraping, or maybe it does long and complex calculations, and so on. All tasks are performed asynchronously, and thus it doesn't block the main process that runs our Django app. How Celery works I'll tell a bit later, and now I want to integrate the Celery to my Django projects. Inside Jokes project folder, I am creating a new celery.py model, and the content of the celery.py file will be a bit similar to the content of the WSGI and the ASCII files. I also need to import the OS model, then OS environ. Environ is a dictionary that contains all system environment variables, like paths to Python, your locale, etc. Then it's a dictionary. I am calling its setDefault method. The first argument of the setDefault method is the Django settings module string, and the second one is the path to the settings.py model. It's a Jokes project folder, jokes_project.settings. As you can probably know, the setDefault method checks whether its first argument, Django settings model, is in the environ dictionary or not. If the Django settings module key is in the environ dictionary, it will return its value. Otherwise, it will insert the Django settings module key and assigns to it a new value, which it takes from its second argument, and then it will return this new value, Then let's import the Celery class. From Celery, import Celery. And I have to create an instance of the Celery class. Celery, and as an argument, it gets the directory that contains the Celery.py model. It's the Jokes project directory. Jokes project. Then I want to specify a prefix for the Celery configuration code, which I will use in the settings.py model. To do it, I'm calling the config from object method. App config from object. And it gets as the first argument Django conf settings, the name of the settings.py model. And the second argument is the name space, the prefix, Celery. And then let's call its auto-discover-tasks method. Okay, now let's open the settings.py model, and somewhere, maybe here, let's define a new variable. It will be the Celery broker URL. That will be a path to the Redis server, localhost, and default Redis server port number is 6379. By the way, let's start it. You have to install the Redis. The port number of the Redis server. Okay, how Celery works. Celery provides workers. The worker is a function that executes our tasks. A task is a function that we define in our Django project. Each worker is running in a separate process, and Django somehow should pass our tasks that we defined to these workers, and usually brokers are used to do it. A broker is a task queue that stores our tasks, its data structure. After the broker gets a task from a Django app, it puts the task in a queue. And then it starts to pass these tasks to workers. After a worker completes its task, it will put the result in a so-called results backend. And then we can fetch these results from Django app. Usually the same broker is used to store the results. And the most popular brokers are Redis and RabbitMQ. In this tutorial I'm using Redis. So you have to install the Redis on your system. And that is why the Celery broker URL is a path, is the URL of the Redis server. And the last thing I want to do, I want to load Celery automatically when the Django starts. So I need the init.py file that is located in the jokes project folder. So, and from .celery model .the current folder, and the Celery is this file. I am import the app variable and save it to the Celery app variable. Let's define the all variable. It's a list of names that will be imported with expression like from x import all with the using of asterisk. And that's all. Now let's create a new Celery task. In the jokes directory I am creating a new Python module on the tasks.py file, and let's define here a new function. Let's say it will be the getJoke function. Let's import the requests library, and then I want to move this code from the index view to my getJoke function. Let's delete the context dictionary. We can close it. And here let's print the joke and let's return the joke. Okay, I have created the getJoke function, and now I have to say to Celery that it's my task, and this getJoke function, this task, should be executed every 3 seconds. So let's import from Celery, import shared task decorator. Shared task. If you are unfamiliar with the decorator concept, consider watching my Python decorators video. Okay, the task is ready, and now let's define its periodic execution. I need the Celery py model again. And here I'm going to configure the Celery scheduler, the bit. So the app variable conf bit schedule. It's a dictionary that gets a new value. This dictionary will have one key, the name of the task that I want to use. Let's say it'll be the getJoke 3 seconds. And the value of this key is a dictionary 2. And this dictionary has 2 keys. The task, it's the path to our getJoke function. So the getJoke function is, let's close it, let's close URLs. So the getJoke function is located in the jokes folder in the tasks model. Jokes, tasks, getJoke. it's a path. And the second key is the schedule, the period, 3 seconds. And that's all. Let's test it. So you have to have the Redis server started. Then I need to start the beat, the Celery scheduler, and I need to start the Celery worker. So on the level of the manage py file, jokes project, from here I'm starting the Celery command -A application, and then I'm specifying the folder that contains the Celery py file. It's the jokes project folder. Jokes project. What I want to start? I want to start the beat, the scheduler. And to see what will happen, I want to use the logger level info. And the same way, I'm starting a worker. The A jokes project worker logger level info. Let's start the beat. Okay, and let's start the worker. And we can see that we got these jokes. It works. The next step is to install channels, integrate it to the project, and to send messages from our task, from the getJokes function, to the channels consumer. So let's stop it. And the bit, and let's install the channels. Pip install channels. Okay, now in the settings py file, let's append the installed apps list with the channels app, comma. Then I have to modify a bit definition of the asynchronous application that's defined in the asgi.py file. The application variable will be an instance of the protocol type router that I have to import from channels routing. Import protocol type router class, and it's get a dictionary as the value. HTTP key gets the result of the get ASCII application function as the value. Then in the settings.py file, I have to use the ASCII application. Just copy this string and change it to ASCII application and ASCII module here. Okay, we can restart development server. We can see that the ASCII server is running. Now let's define a WebSocket, a router, and a handler like we usually do with the core Django apps. So let's start with the router. We can define it in any file we want, but the preferred way is to create a special routing py file that I want to create in the jokes folder, routing py. And the idea of this file is absolutely the same like of core urls py files. I need the path function. From Django urls import path, and let's define ws WebSocket URL patterns path. The URL will be ws in jokes, for example, and the handler of all requests to this URL will be, for example, the jokes consumer class. And I am calling it as ASCII method. Let's import it. I will define it in the consumers model. I have no consumers py model, so let's create it. And here I have to import the async WebSocket consumer class from channels, generic WebSocket, import async WebSocket consumer. And let's define the jokes consumer class. It will be a subclass of the async WebSocket consumer. Pass for a while, because I have to use the WS URL patterns list. So I need again the ascii.py file, and the dictionary gets a new key, the WebSocket, and the value of this key will be an instance of the auth middleware stack class that gets as an argument an instance of the URL router class, and in its turn the URL router gets our WS URL patterns list. So let's import them all. From channels auth import auth middleware stack class. Then from routing, let's import the URL router class, and from jokes folder, from routing module, let's import our WS URL patterns list. That's it. First of all, Django Channels checks the type of the connection, protocol type router. It checks the protocol type, whether it is an HTTP connection or a WebSocket connection, because the WebSocket is a different protocol. If the connection is the WebSocket connection, it will be given to the auth middleware stack class to identify a user, like Django does with its own auth model. After that, the connection will be given to the URL router class that passes it to the consumer that was defined in the WS URL patterns list. So, let's back to our jokes consumer class. We can close ASCII.py, the routing, the Celery, jokes consumer. Let's define the connect method to accept the incoming connection from a WebSocket. As the jokes consumer class is a subclass of the async WebSocket consumer class, the connect method should be a coroutine. So I have to use the async syntax, async def connect, and gets the self as an argument. And then I'm calling the asynchronous function self accept method to accept the incoming connection. The next point here, I can and I want to add the incoming connection to a group of channels. To do it, I'm calling the group add method that takes two arguments. So before the accept method, I have to call the channel layers group add method. That takes two arguments. The first argument is the name of the group. Let's say it'll be the jokes group. It's something like a channel on YouTube or a group on a Facebook. We subscribe to this channel to get its updates, its news. And the group in Django Channels has the same idea, the same goal. So the jokes group. And then the second argument is the channel name. Channel name. Channel name is assigned to a channel automatically. And I think that it's time to configure the channel layers. As you remember from the last video, the channel layer is an ordered first in, first out data structure. It's a queue of messages that this data structure receives from its clients, from the producers. And for every message on the channel in this queue, in this data structure, Django will call the assigned consumer. In my case, for each message in the channel, Django will call the jokes consumer class. So, to use the channel layer, I want to use Redis as a message broker, as I said earlier. So I have to install Channels Redis app. Pip install Channels Redis. Then in the settings.py file, I have to define the channel layers variable. Channel layers. The channel layers is a dictionary, and we can specify here many layers, like we can use several databases, but the default layer will be enough. Default. It's a dictionary too. The backend key, the value channels underscore Redis, core Redis channel layer. Then the config. It's a dictionary, and the config will have the host's key. It's a list of IPs. So I will use a localhost IP 700.1 and the port number is the default port number of the Redis server 6379. That's it. Let's back again to our jokes consumer class. Then I want to define the disconnect method. That will be disconnect the client from the group, and the code is almost the same. Just copy it here, but instead of the group add, I am calling the group discard method. Now I want to send a message to the jokes group, but I want to do it outside of the jokes consumer class. I want to do it from my Celery task, from the getJoke function. From here. First of all, I have to get the default channel layer that we described in the settings.py file. So to get it, let's create the channel layer variable, and it will be the result of the getChannelLayer function that I have to import from channels layers, import getChannelLayer function. The getChannelLayer function is an asynchronous function that I want to call from the synchronous function getJoke. To make it possible, I want to use the async to sync function. Let's import it too. From ASCII ref model sync import async to sync. Let's remove this. And then let's call async to sync function. And as an argument, it gets the function. The function as an object that should be converted to a synchronous function. I have to pass into it the group send method. So the channel layer variable, and I'm passing its group send method. I want to notice that I passed the method as an object. I don't call it. And the async to sync function will return the group send function as an object too, but a kind of its synchronous version that I have to call. I put here brackets, and the group send method takes two arguments. The group name, it will be the jokes group, and the message. The second argument is the message. It's a dictionary that has two keys. The first one is the type. The type is the name of the method of the jokes consumer class that will handle the message. Let's name it send jokes method. I will define it a bit later. And the second key is the text of the message. And I want to use the joke variable, this one. That's it. I said here that the handler of this message will be the sendJokes method. Let's define it. Async def self, and it gets the event. And the event in this case is our message that was sent by the getJoke function. Let's get its value, its text key. Text message variable gets event and its text. And the text message will get the joke. And then I want to call the send method that gets the text message variable as an argument. Okay, and the last thing I have to do is to create the front-end part of the WebSocket. So let's open the index.html file and let's add the script tag here. And I'm creating an instance. I want to reload the index.html file. Something wrong with the highlighting. So socket, a new instance of the WebSocket class. And WebSocket gets the URL pattern as an argument. Localhost 8000 ws jokes, as we have defined in the routing py file vs jokes. Then I have to define the onMessage method. It's a function that gets an event from the browser. I want to get the joke event data, and the data variable, the data attribute, is our message that we'll get from the sendJokes method. It's not a JSON object here, it's just a plain text. And then I want to get the h3 header and change its text. Document query selector jokes inner text that gets a new value, the joke. That's it, let's test it. I want to restart the beat and I want to restart the worker. Okay, let's make a request. It's working. Let's create a new client. Okay, it's working. If you like the video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.